Welcome back everyone to Ludus Infinium. Today we will be doing the third part of Horus Heresy Book 1, Horus Rising. If you like the video, leave a like, show some love in the comments. If you don't like the video, leave a dislike and let me know what I can do to make it a little bit better. That being said, let's get into it. In the first part of Part 3, we are shown where the Emperor and the High Lords of Terra, including Malcador the Sigillite, bring about the Remembrancer Order, and we're told that of all the expeditionary fleets, which there were approximately 43,000 primary fleets, 60,000 secondary fleets, and 300 primary fleets in retrofit or waiting for orders, that in the first few months, 4.3 million Remembrancers were sent abroad. We are also told how Lehman Russ specifically reacts to the Remembrancers as having said, "Arm the bastards and maybe they can win a few worlds for us in between verses." We are also shown the overall reaction that the Primarchs were not understanding or realistically happy about the Council of Terra, and it's said, even though this is actually proven to be an outright lie later, that they didn't argue the ascension of Horus to War Master, but the need for it. In fact, there's cases of where there are other Primarchs saying it should have been them. There are some that's saying that, like the book says, that there's no need for a War Master, it should have been me, or it should have been a different Primarch, so on and so forth. So we're starting to see a couple of inconsistencies, but for the most part, it's still pretty dead on. They do a bit of jumping back and forth between the book to where they're now 3 months after the Battle of quote-unquote Terra, which later becomes known as 6319. And it's shown that there's, first off, that the Remembrancers get at best a cold reception, and at absolute worst either no reception at all or an almost hostile reception. And we're also shown that on 6319, which is what I will call it from now on to keep the confusion at least to a little bit of a minimum, is that the centralized resistance fighting had almost died out, but on the fringes there were still resistant forces in, not in mass, but there were enough of them to cause a lot of trouble. And the Imperial commander Vargas thinks to himself, I guess, the way they word it, it's kind of like he thinks to himself, but don't quite get it that well, that this isn't the first time he's had to pick up the pieces after the Astartes had brought, not really brought a planet into compliance, which is what he's doing, is finishing up bringing it into compliance, but have set it up to be ready for compliance. Two things we see really cool happening after the, I guess you could call it cleanup of 6319 is Horus, because he wants to bring the world into compliance and not just outright crush them, is offering a funeral service for the false emperor. And a lot of Luna Wolves had issues with this. So much so even where Abaddon outright refused to have any of his men, not just himself, but his men, be involved with this. And the second part of this that's really kind of cool to see is another Primarch was actually traveling with the Luna Wolves, and it was Rogel Dorn and 2 companies of Imperial Fists. And to help the Luna Wolves preserve their honor and basically save face, he's like, well, okay, instead of Luna Wolves going to the funeral ceremonies for the Emperor, send the Imperial Fists. We'll do it. We have next to no skin in the game, so yeah, we'll do that so your soldiers can save face. We see a scene with Tarik Torgaddon and Garviel Loken in which we get to see a little bit more of the humor between Torgaddon and Loken, and also Nero Vipus. When Vipus brings Torgaddon to Loken, he's still recovering from having his hand crushed and cut off, because they can fix that. Basically what they'll do is keep the hand preserved and repair it, and then reattach it, which is some really cool stuff. A little bit past what we can do modern, like actual real life stuff, but what they do is still pretty cool from a medical perspective. And he asks Vipus, how's the hand? It's on the mend, they're just waiting for my body to accept the augmentation so they can reattach it, all that good stuff. It's like, oh, okay, well, wipe your ass with the other one. And just kind of joking around with him. And there's been rumors going around that Loken is to be the next member of the Mournival, taking Hastus or Janus's place. And he's training when Torgaddon comes to him. So Torgaddon gets in the training ring with him to spar with him, and Loken asks, are the rumors true? To which his response is, no, they're not. Of course they are. Or maybe they're not. No, they are. And throughout this entire conversation, he has a lot of pokes and prods at Loken. For instance, even saying, yeah, even Ekadon seconded it. The captain of the Reavers from First Company. And Loken takes that with a big grain of salt, looking at him like, really? No, there's no way. He's like, nah, he hates your ass. Abaddon seconded you. And so we get to see a lot of the back and forth between Loken and Torgaddon, and show that they have this camaraderie where they just joke with each other, and it's really kind of cool. It's something you really don't see a lot of in modern 40k. So being able to see this is a nice touch, really. After the exchange between Torgaddon and Loken goes to the Hall of the Iterators, where they're sitting and listening to the head Iterator, Sindermann, who... Iterators, for lack of better words, because they're not priests, but they spread word of the secular imperial truth like priests. So think like priests that go around saying, no, there's no such thing as religion, just science. So Scientology, they're Scientology. Let's do that. But they teach that humans used to be based in ignorance, which even in our day we see as true. For instance, when we look at Greek mythology, where they had the god who pulled the sun across the sky in a chariot, and the other god who pulled a shade over the earth, and that's what created night. I mean, even at one point, they believed that the sun went around the earth, not that the earth is rotating around the sun. So they're kind of commenting on that kind of history, where it's like, look how much we've learned, and we're continuing to learn. And this is the job of the Iterators. they... So to understand this, you have to understand one of the key concepts of 40K. If you believe it, it is real. And this is a machination of the warp. This is why the Imperium has, at this point, outlawed all religions. And if they find someone who is religious, they re-educate them or kill them, one of the two. And if they come to a world that has religious followings, then when they go to bring the world into compliance, they basically say, no, here's an iterator. They will tell you the truth. And to summarize, they basically spread the word of the Imperial truth not only among the expeditionary fleets, but also among worlds newly brought into compliance. We see an interesting conversation take place between Sindermann and Loken on a couple of philosophical points that are, I think, at least really cool to point out. The first one is that Sindermann believes he's basically selling truth through combat, wondering if, it's the worth of it realistically. And Loken poses the argument that he is just a weapon who has no say, because all the thinking that needs to be done for the quote-unquote weapon to do its work has already been done by the War Master. And Loken comes and asks Sindermann his opinion on being a part of the Mournival, the 4 captains who are basically advisors to Horus. And Sindermann says the reason that Loken was chosen is because he's very upfront, he doesn't automatically agree, and brings up the term a naismith, which is basically, the way they describe it in the book, is someone who was hired to disagree with every point a leader makes. And Loken confuses Sindermann saying, no, just be yourself, or wait a minute, do you want me to be a naismith? He's like, no, just be yourself. Just be honest to who you are. And it's a really cool and a really philosophical conversation. Like I said before, this is something I don't see a lot of through other 40K outlets. So that I'm seeing this now is pretty eye-opening and honestly pretty damn cool. We're also shown how Horus recruited the senior iterators to teach the Astartes outside of combat about politics, about stuff like that, under the belief that there will not always be this fighting, so they've got to know stuff other than fighting. And it shows foresight on Horus's part, and it also shows it shows that if you don't know what's going to happen with 40K, that it's very reasonable to believe that would happen. Sindermann and Loken also discuss the Mournival and what it is, using their own descriptions from a couple different phrases. It's an unofficial body in the Legion that acts like confidants to Horus. They are, their rank has no meaning as the Mournival. They are 4 company captains, but they, in their roles as the Mournival, their rank has no meaning whatsoever. And they act as differing forces. It's supposed to be an equal balance. For instance, you have Torgaddon, who's the Joker. You have Abaddon, who is the more aggressive of the 4. You have little Horus Aximand, who's stoic, I guess you could say. And to steal Torgaddon's phrase for Loken, you have Loken, who is a starch ass. Basically, that he is so uptight. That's probably why Dorn recommended him. I was about to say voted for him. Not quite. But that's why he's been recommended for the Mournival, and why he ultimately gets it is because he brings that complete balance. You have all four members who do have differences, but they sit there and share their viewpoints on a matter. For instance, when it comes later on, they go to do an invasion, and Abaddon and Aximand are like, yes, we need to go do this. And Loken says, I don't know, something seems off here. Maybe we should sit back and think this one out. And ultimately, he is overruled by Horus, but it shows how the Mournival works, which is again another really cool concept. And that has been part 3 of Horus Rising, the first book in the Horus Heresy series. And woof, we're getting into some interesting topics here. Again, this is something I really like, and I might actually do videos later on my thoughts on some of the philosophical conversations they have throughout the book, or books, I should say. But that being said, if you liked the video, leave a like, show some love in the comments. If you did not like the video, leave a dislike, and let me know what I could do to make it a little bit better. That being said, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.